So I've been using the 2020 iPad Pro for over a week now as my main laptop, and the question on my channel is if you gotta have it. Now I want to be critical in this review, and I want to go ahead and say that if you do nothing but light web browsing, checking your emails, taking notes, or you're a designer, I would say this might be the perfect replacement of your laptop, but you should probably get the 2018 model, and I'll get into that later. If you're new to the channel, I highly recommend hitting the subscribe button to see more tech content, and it also really does help out the channel. And let's get into the review. So similar to my Mac Mini review that I'll have up here linked above, I think benchmarks and specs are important, especially for tech enthusiasts, but for the average consumer, AKA the masses who are buying this product, they don't really care about that kind of stuff. They care about the day-to-day use and how it will affect their lives. So I want to go over the specs and benchmarks really quick. All right, starting off with the specs and benchmarks of the iPad Pro, it's rocking the A12Z chip, which is pretty much identical to the A12X chip in the 2018 MacBook Pro. Apple has claimed that this chip is faster than most Windows laptops. And I would say that according to the Geekbench scores, they are in fact true. It's actually faster than my Surface Laptop 3 that I have. And in my experience, this thing is really fast. And I mean, it's really, really fast. So on the 2020 model, the iPad Pro has 6 gigabytes of RAM across the board, and the storage ranges from 128 gigabytes all the way up to 1 terabyte. There's Wi-Fi and cellular as always. There's a 120 hertz display, or Apple likes to call it the Pro Motion. There's True Tone technology. The display is using the P3 wide gamut, so color accuracy is extremely accurate. The camera is now 10 megapixel ultra wide camera and 12 megapixel wide camera and a LiDAR scanner. So if you do a lot of AR or need to measure depth within a room, the iPad Pro is more than capable of doing that for you. So with the addition of iPadOS 13.4 to give it a more traditional laptop feel, Apple has built a new trackpad and mouse support. And I would say that the software is pretty good, but I'll get into that later in my review. All right, so let's get into the critical part of my review, my daily usage. But before I get into that, I wanna go back in time. Stay with me here. I wanna go back to 2010 when Steve Jobs first announced the iPad and pretty much what the purpose of this device was for. And to give you context to the clip I'm going to show you, he's talking about how the iPad needs to be better at some tasks than a laptop and a smartphone.
If there's going to be a third category of device, it's going to have to be better at these kinds of tasks than a laptop or a smartphone. Otherwise, it has no reason for being. And we call it the iPad.
Now, I do want to say I agree with most of the categories that Steve Jobs said the iPad is a better experience for, except for gaming, but I guess that can be debatable because I don't really want to play games on here. But I would say 10 years later, the iPad still excels in majority of those categories. So now I want to fast forward over to 2018 when Tim Cook first announced the iPad, and I want you to notice how loud the audience is.
iPad is a magical piece of glass that transforms instantly into anything you want it to be.
Yeah, I didn't even know people got that hype off iPhones, but I guess the iPad audience is much larger than I thought it was. But now, throughout the review, I want you to keep in mind of what Tim said. It's very important that he said that the iPad can transform into anything you want it to be. So starting off with what I like about the iPad Pro is the hardware and design. The overall look and feel of the iPad Pro and lightness is something that I did not expect and something that I was really impressed with, especially my unboxing experience. I have it wrapped in the Logitech Slim Folio Pro. I know Apple has their own version, but Logitech has a more traditional feel in terms of the typing experience on a regular laptop. Also, the Apple one is $100 more, so why would you? So I also got the Apple Pencil because I wanted to get the full experience, and it doubles as a charger on top. I think it's a really convenient location, especially with the Logitech Slim Folio Pro, so I can easily wrap it around and it won't be getting in my way, and it stays latched on there. So I'm not an artist by any means, so I used the knowledge I had for when I was in 5th grade and drew something real quick. It took me like, I don't know, 10, 15 minutes. So you guys can judge me on my architect design. So it also has Pro Motion, which is 120 hertz. It is something that you need to experience in person to understand how good a higher refresh rate is. And Apple, I really hope you bring this to the iPhone coming up this year. ProMotion would be a game changer, and I think more people would buy your phones. Even if it's 90 hertz, do something. 60, we're living in the past. So there is USB-C on the side, and you can actually plug in a USB-C hub and connect other devices if that's something you would like to do. So another thing I really liked about the iPad is that I felt like I could use it pretty much anywhere. And I found it most comfortable just laying on the couch or first thing in the morning in bed. And media consumption on this thing, watching YouTube videos, Netflix, the speakers are really, really good. Much better than what I expected. I'll go ahead and have you guys listen to the speakers right now.
We show up in the party, flyer than everybody. We show up in the party, flyer than everybody. The party.
So also, like I said, this was my first time ever using an iPad. So what I really liked to do was just download all the different apps that I had on my iPhone and just see the iPad equivalent application, and experiencing the iPad app was amazing to say the least. But it also did suck for apps that weren't compatible, and it just showed a small, I guess, iPhone equivalent. So you can also shoot 4K and edit the video on here, which is really nice. Editing on the iPad Pro, it's 100% doable, but I will say you'll look a little weird in public. I mean, it's just me, but I think people look weird when they're just like recording in public with their iPad, especially when they have a cover and everything on there. So keep that in mind. But if you aren't self-conscious about that, go ahead, start recording in public with your iPad Pro. So Face ID on the iPad Pro is another like that I have. It's really fast, and if you are covering up the camera, it will tell you. Apple, I think that would be pretty cool to put on iOS for your iPhones. Another major like I said, was the hardware and design. I like the lightness and portability of the iPad Pro. So like I said, it kind of feels like I'm almost carrying around a light book. Compared to a traditional laptop, it is smaller. Like I said, I do have the 11-inch version. I think the 12-inch might be too big for me, and I'll also just use a traditional laptop for things like that. I'll get into that towards the end of the review. But yeah, the overall lightness and design of the iPad Pro is something that I think Apple really nailed, and they should continue on making this device as light as possible. So even though I wasn't able to go into the world with the iPad Pro, I felt really trendy using it, if that makes any sense. Like, I felt like if I went into a small shop and opened up the iPad and started working on it, people would look at me and be like, wow, that guy is using an iPad as his laptop. Isn't he cool? I mean, maybe let's say that, maybe they'll think I'm dumb and I should just be using a regular laptop, but I just felt really trendy when using this. So getting to what I dislike about the iPad Pro, which will be a very extensive list to say the least. First off, this will be your reality. I don't know if you guys can see this, but this thing has so many fingerprints on the front, and it's kind of disgusting, not gonna lie. So I'd probably say get a screen protector, but this will be what you'll be looking at. But obviously when it's on, it's not that bad of an experience. So with the addition of iPadOS 13.4, Apple added a new mouse and trackpad support that they built from the ground up. And while it is good, I just found myself using my finger or the Apple Pencil anyway, because I just felt like it was faster. And sometimes I thought the mouse was a little buggy for me. Like, for example, when I was watching a YouTube video and I wanted to scrub through the video, for some reason when I was using the mouse, it kept wanting to minimize the video for some reason. But I found that if I just used my finger, it worked not even 9 times out of 10. It worked 10 out of 10 times. And when it got to that point, I just felt like the mouse support, it will improve over time with software, but I think for now, there's still a little bit of kinks that they have to work out within the software. So another thing I didn't like was there's no switch to indicate whether the ringer is on or off. And there'd be other times where I'd use some apps and some app features just weren't present. So for example, when I was using Google Docs, there was some options that I couldn't find, but when I went and logged into the browser, it had all the full options. So just be mindful of that when you are going into buying this device, that it has all the functionalities that you need within the iPad app. So I tried really hard for the iPad Pro to replace my laptop, but guys, I couldn't do it. As much as I tried, I just felt that a laptop can do much more and more or less the same as the iPad. For starters, in terms of functionality and usability, there's only one USB-C port, and most laptops nowadays have, this is the MacBook Air that I'll be doing a comparison between the iPad Pro. This MacBook Air has two USB-C, which work as Thunderbolt 3 ports, and it still has a headphone jack, which is surprising because Apple's the one that killed the headphone jack, and they're still putting it on their products. Now, I know Tim Cook said that the iPad can transform into anything you want it to. And to be honest, this thing can transform into a laptop. At point, I almost forgot I was using a laptop sometimes. But then it would get to a certain point where I was just like, man, I wish I had an actual laptop right now. You also have to factor in that this is the 11-inch and most laptops are the 13-inch. So you would have to opt in for the 12.9-inch if you'd want a bigger display and do some more multitasking, if you want to do stuff like that. If you do decide to go bigger, the accessories you buy are going to be more expensive as well. And Apple's new Magic trackpad keyboard that they're going to be coming out with cost almost a fourth of the iPad itself, which is something only Apple can pull off. If you want this to replace your laptop and you do really minimal light workloads like browsing the web, checking emails, taking notes, I think you honestly could get away with buying the iPad Pro. All right, so who's gotta have this device? Well, if you have children that annoy you and you want something to double as your potential laptop, get the 2018 model. If you're a student who primarily take notes, write papers, browse the web, and watch a lot of content like videos, then you should get the 2018 model. Now, I'm not a designer by any means, so I can't really speak on behalf of if you should buy this, if you're some artist or a digital designer, and I don't want to speak on something that I personally just don't know about. I will say you should probably get the 2018 model. So should you get the 11-inch or 12-inch? I'm a cheap person, and there's like a $200 price delta that you have to deal with. So if you're comfortable spending $200 extra for the bigger screen and you think it'll be beneficial for you, go ahead and get that, but you should probably get the 2018 model. If you are a video editor, please keep in mind that there's only one port, but if you don't care about ports, then you can definitely get away with editing on this and recording. But like I said, you should probably get the 2018 model. The last category, the last two people that I think should get this device, if you want to feel trendy, get this device so people know that you have the latest and greatest iPad Pro. And two, if you absolutely need the LiDAR scanner. If you need the LiDAR scanner on the back, then you should probably get this device. Everyone else, just go ahead and get a regular laptop, because just regarding the ports, the functionality, the optimization, the OS, I think your money is better well spent on a traditional laptop. So Apple's right. This thing is not a laptop. It truly does transform into what you want it to be. But, and I quote, "A jack of all trades is a master of none, but oftentimes better than a master of one." So it felt cool saying that quote, and I think it sort of fit this situation as well. But if you think it's stupid, let me know. That's pretty much it for my iPad Pro review. There's gonna be lots of comparisons coming out. This thing is truly an amazing product, but I think you just should get the 2018 model. Anyway, if you want to see more comparison videos and more tech videos, please make sure to subscribe. Like the video if you like it, and that's gonna be it for me today, guys. Peace, much love. All right, finally, I can go ahead and edit this on a real laptop. The iPad Air. See ya.